Well, school may be out for the summer, but state lawmakers are busy with a new bill that will impact students across the state. It targets using phones in the classroom. WCTV's Ava Brengord spoke to school leaders in Brunswick County, where they've already taken matters into their own hands. Ava, how will this impact the district's current program to keep those phones locked up?
Yeah, Daniela, Brunswick County school leaders say the bill that's hit the governor's desk is more lax than the district's current phone policies. They say it's a good move by the state legislature, but their plans are not changing.
In an effort to get phones down and learning up in the classroom, a new bill passed by the State General Assembly requires all North Carolina school boards to restrict the use of phones during class time. But for Brunswick County schools, this is nothing new.
We've had that policy, and so have many schools for years.
The bill comes as the school district just announced the expansion of their Yondr pouch program that locks students' phones at the beginning of the day until they go home. That expansion coming at a cost of $78,000. It's money school board member Steve Gainey says is put to good use.
We felt like the way to ensure that phones were not being accessed during the instructional day was to physically remove the phones from the students' ability to access the phone.
Despite the high price tag, Gainey believes locking up phones all day is more effective than enforcing the ban just during class time, which is outlined in the bill.
If we enforce that policy, it's going to have a much greater impact than if we were to enforce just what the policy is that sits currently on the governor's desk.
Other counties are taking note as well. Columbus County Schools approved the Yondr program for just under $60,000. Gainey says he's happy the district is setting the standard.
We're happy to have been the first ones on the floor.
And will already be ahead of the game if the program goes statewide.
If signed into law, the bill also requires students to be taught social media literacy to promote internet safety. Now, again, the bill has been sent to the governor's desk. Ava Brengord, WECT News.